Let's do the good life meditation for today. This is something I do every day to remind myself of my objectives, my principles. There are 5 objectives. First of these is the objective of the good and effective use of time. To live well, to make good use of the little bit of time that I have remaining. 2, the development and maintenance of good, sound life principles. I'm tired, it's hot too. Well, it's not so hot as much as I'm still wearing too much clothes. I should probably take some of this off. Let's see if I can put this here for a second. There we go. So the development and maintenance of good, sound life principles. These are the 20 that follow later. These are the things that guide me through life. And it's funny because I don't really think about them so much. But anymore at least, during when I was developing them, I thought about them a lot. But now that I have them, I simply recite them to myself every day to recall what they are. And that seems to be sufficient to keep them active and foremost in my mind. The third objective is the cultivation of good emotional reactions, just to react well to the circumstances of life. You know, there's a lot of tough days that we all have, and it's helpful to be able to respond well to those things, to not fly off the handle or get upset, but to be able to, you know, weather them like a chill summer rain shower when we're caught out of doors. We don't really, you know, get mad at the rain, but we just kind of hunker up a little bit and, you know, just walk on to where we're going or whatever we're doing, and, you know, we just kind of live with it. That's how I try to get through life emotionally. You know, most of the time I'm okay, but every now and then something will happen that'll upset me. So instead of, you know, just kind of, okay, it's a tough one, a tough patch, just kind of push through it. Big old pack. It's my first hike with my 3-day pack, and it's completely outfitted for 3 days. So I could come stay out here for the next 3 days and 2 nights with everything that I've got in here right now. I'm about a mile out into the deep water wilderness. I'm at the edge of deep water right now. That's the deep water wilderness over there. Number 4 is the fourth objective is just to do good things, to perform good actions through the course of the day, to just make my walk through the day a good walk, and a productive walk, and a helpful walk. And then 5, the recognition of true limits and the recognition of of opportunity. To know where my limits stand, and where I guess there are, you know, only so many things. There's a bit of a gourd there. There's only so many things that my body can do, and so many things that my mind can do. It's good to kind of keep an eye on those things, while at the same time assessing what I can indeed do, and attempt to align my objectives accordingly. And that's it for my objectives. So my principles are 20. The first is the principle of war, to make my first endeavor in life to seek out the weaknesses in my own, in my own principles, and try to tease them out and do something about that. If I've got bad ideas, then try to correct those. So I don't do that enough. I really should spend more time thinking about my bad ideas and thinking about what I think are my good ideas to figure out if they really are. second objective is, second principle is the principle of reason. Reason being the king of making my way through life. It's, what do you call it? It's the arbiter of truth. It's a mechanism that I use to discern to discern if my principles are indeed good. I like this round rock. Or if they're silly. And the sub-principles of reason are honesty and objectivity. An important bit. Look at that. I love this granite. It just kind of decomposes away. See, that's this granite, comes up from a lava flow deep inside the earth, out from a magma chamber, deep inside the bubble, really. And then makes this decomposed granite slippery as gorilla snot, though, once you start climbing that stuff. Look at this rock. It seems to have some lines through it. Interesting. Oh, and I like that. There's like a sill of a volcanic rock right there. I mean, the granite, that rhyolite, is volcanic as well, just different type. You can see the line going through. So next is 3 is the homunculus. The homunculus is not real. It's just my description of what I think of as a little man that lives inside my head. And I do this, and I don't want, I've just recently become aware that it's a little dangerous to do this, because I can, for lack of a better word, anthropomorphize my homunculus. It's not separate from me. It's with me. When I live, the homunculus lives. When I die, the homunculus dies. It's not anything like a soul that's interchangeable. This stuff's prickly as gorilla snot. See the little thorns? That'll take a nice piece of flesh out if you're not careful. But I like to think about the homunculus because it reminds me that it's my consciousness is just another apparatus of my body. It's like another organ, like my liver or my spleen. It performs a particular function. Look at this big rock. And sentient, well, let's call it just intelligence. We all have intelligence. We are an intelligent species. And, there's different species have different levels of that. There's not a lot of intelligent species, I think. Dolphins, whales, elephants, dogs, cats, to a greater or lesser degree, right? Of course, the great apes. Intelligence provides a function, similar to claws, whereas, claws help with a survival apparatus. It appears that intelligence likewise evolved as a survival apparatus. And so, in keeping that in mind, I have to remember that this homunculus that sits behind my eyes, seemingly, running the levers, dragonfly, of what I am, there goes a lizard. There's a dragonfly. That homunculus is, this is interesting, is just another survival thing. I mean, like my brutish ancestors that didn't have a higher evolved brain got by just fine without that, more evolved homunculus. I just want to remember that. Looks like someone left a marker here, huh? Definitely someone. Wonder how long that's been sitting there. Well, this would eventually rot away. I've never seen any footprints up here, tracks or anything, but there is evidence of past humanity. In fact, there's a mine right up there. We might see it on this little walk, an old shaft that goes straight down. I'll let you guys peek inside if we get to it. I won't get too close. So that's the homunculus, and like kind of my reminder that that I don't have a soul, but I do have an intellect and consciousness. Look at that! I love this. Another sill of rock. The next, number 4, is the home of good and evil. Good and evil reside with the homunculus. This is my reminder that good and evil do not float out here in the wilderness or the landscape. It's not something that, some absolute. It's not like because, I don't believe that there are any gods. So there's no lawgiver to give us objective good and evil. Good and evil, what we decide they are. And that's the scary thing, because that puts all the weight and responsibility on our shoulders. But it's also a powerful thing, because it gives us room to compromise. And I know that's a scary thought to some, the idea of subjective good and evil. But when good and evil are absolutely objective in a dogmatic sense, then there's no room for correction. What my God says is so, must be so. And off with your head if you think otherwise. Interesting up there. But if good and evil are with the homunculus, and they're fallible, which the homunculus, of course, is fallible, then there's room for compromise. If I'm holding on to something that I think is good and evil, then I'll listen to argument to tell me if otherwise. Like if I think that burning witches at the stake is a good thing, or cutting off people's heads for any infidels, then and I'm willing to listen to reason, because I recognize that those concepts reside inside my head with my homunculus, then I might be likely to change my mind if good arguments are put to me. So it's a position of being able, it's a more realistic position. I think the mine in question is right around this corner. I'll go up this way this time. I saw it last time when I went around that way. Next is, after the homunculus, the home of good and evil, comes purpose. That's the fifth principle. I believe there are two purpose in life. Now, of course, it's up to us to decide, this stuff. But I think one is objectively obvious. Look at the flash flood debris. You can see where the water came racing down through here. The creosote bush debris, flowers and stuff. And here's a bush completely upside down. Anyway, the first, I think there are two purposes in life. First is very objective, very biological. To get my genes, as many of my genes as possible, into the next generation and further down the road. Some bunny or something's been sitting here and pooping. Good spot to sit. Probably not a bunny. I wonder what it would be. The next is bunny poop's different. I think that's self-evident, right? Biologically, that's why that's our main thing, is to survive into adulthood, reproduce, see our offspring into independence, and then to, die and get the heck out of the way. Other than that, I've done all that. So what's left? Well, what do I do now? So that's why the second part is you kind of have to make up your own purpose. And for me, my purpose is virtue. To live a virtuous life. To be a good man. You may say, well, what the heck is virtue? Well, virtue is whatever realizes the objective well-being of as many as possible. You can knock some off the top of your head real easily. And the great thing is you can argue for all of these and have your mind changed, but knock a few off. Some examples of virtue would be, of well-being would be comprehensive education for the masses, good, clean drinking water, quality sanitation, quality health care, better communication, better equality between the sexes and the races. All these types of things that I think we would all, for the most part, agree are improvements. Look at this canyon up here and the colors. We're better off that way. We're better off. And if you don't think so, then give me your argument as to why not. And if you make a good argument, I'll change my mind. My definition of virtue will change. So that's the purpose that I strive after. Now, the mine shaft is right up here. It's straight down into the earth. I've only been here once before. I saw it from the other side. I was too scared to get close to the edge because falling in would not be good. Although now I have my spot thing, so I could, as long as I could talk to this satellite, it'd be okay. Here's some bits of wood. Now remember, there was mining up here in the 19th and early 20th centuries. So this is remnant from that. These are the tailings here. Pile of rock. Here's more wood. If I remember, there's a structure, a piece of wood across it or something. Wow, I love that. You get a photo of that. There we go. here's the mine. Kurt, be careful. Oh, that's deep. Holy crap. Let's throw a rock down there. See, I told you there's a little piece of wood that goes across the top. Heard nothing. Let's try again. Huh. Well, I'm not getting closer than that, because there's no way I'd get the satellite signal if I fell in there, and I might not even survive the fall. But there you go, a real bona fide California deserted mine. And I wonder if they were after that. See that shaft of that black, that dark color? I wonder if that's what they were mining. Probably. That vertical shaft. Absolutely fascinating. And that shaft probably continues all the way. Let's continue on, heading up towards a place called El Campo 1. Wow. Remember, the wood deteriorates very slowly up here, given the age, the weather. It's dry arid landscape. Okay, moving along now. We've talked about our first 5 principles. Now, the next 5. Number 6 is the atomic principle. Sounds impressive, huh? An atomic principle. It's just a reminder to myself of my mortality. You know, that the universe consists of energy, here and there frozen into the form of matter. All of this is just frozen energy, all this desert, all these plants, animals, you know, these atoms and molecules and compounds and structures and all that kind of stuff. Ooh. And we're all liable to disintegrate down to our constituent parts, and I'm obligated at this point to lift up some sand and throw out some sand. Just, you know, that's it. Ashes to ashes and dust to dust. And I try to remind myself that very, very soon I will be back into my constituent parts. Next principle is principle of nature. It's not like the principle of nature, like nature is cool or anything like that, although it is, of course. It's reminding myself instead that everything has a particular nature to it. There's something about the way things are that if we can apprehend that, then we can understand better and expect things. For example, here's a hill of ants, you know. Now it's in their nature to rise early in the morning, usually before dawn, spread out and start going around, and you can see. And it's their nature to bite things. So if I stand here for very long, ignoring that nature, then I'm likely going to get an ant clawing up my leg and will bite me. So instead, I will respect that nature and I'll keep moving along. Now, change that a little bit. Now imagine I'm at work. Looks like a den right there. Imagine I'm at work and I've got a coworker who's, you know, and I'm not saying I do, I'm just making this up. I've got a coworker who's a bit of a son of a gun. You know, I know he's a son of a gun. So why do I keep getting upset every time he behaves like a son of a gun? Whoop, 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 something big fly. Oh, get away. What are you? Let's hope that's not a horsefly. Now, if I know he's a son of a gun, and I that's part of his nature, you know, maybe it's a deliberate part of his nature, but it's nevertheless, it's part of who he is, then it's my bad if I expect anything other than behaving like a son of a gun. It'd be much better if I simply recognize that as the fact and then dealt with it as it happened. Now right up there is Campo 1. Haven't been here for a while. There's still over there, maybe not right there, but maybe around the next one. Old mining camp, little structure there. I think there's a table. So also, what is my nature? You know, what is my nature? Is my nature to stay at home and have this more domestic life? Not really. Although I do that because I like having a family. But my nature is more interested in walking alone in quiet, desolate places and periodically turning on the camera. I think it's a black widow web right there. Making videos like this, thinking. So I do that. I indulge in that nature, and I'm a happier guy for it. There's all kinds of things, you know. What's the nature of living in Los Angeles? What's the nature of the sun in the desert, you know? And just simply thinking these things through and then recognizing what the nature is and then living according to that, we'll live a better life. At least that's what I found to be the case. So what else? The next is maturity. Let's keep looking forward. Maturity. Maturity consists of two things: wisdom and fortitude. This is number 8. Wisdom is, of course, the accumulated knowledge that we gain over life, that usually it's hard won through mistakes, that helps us to live better if we abide that wisdom. And fortitude is our ability to push through tough times towards what we think is a better end. This is a canyon that I've been meaning to explore. I might actually do that today. Maybe I'll go back this way. I know where that leads. I think I'm a little worried about the rising heat, but I think I might be okay. So I'll go up here to El Campo number 1 and then maybe come back and go up there. So maturity is wisdom and the fortitude to abide that wisdom. Now, the interesting thing about fortitude, though, is that you can use that to leverage the wisdom of others. It's hard to do so otherwise, because wisdom you have to kind of gain through time. But, for example, in the military, they use fortitude to teach individual soldiers to push through the adversity along to pursue their orders, which gives them an early form of maturity without having to do the hard work of trial and error. So the ostensibly older, wiser generals, you know, who come up with a mature plan, then use the fortitude of their young soldiers to execute that plan. Interesting combination. There's a lot to be said for that, especially look back at the early in particular in a military sense, the Romans, for example, they were really good at that. Anyway, next is social principle. Social principle is simply recognizing that human beings are social animals. We need one another to survive, and our best ends are social ends. So I try to be a social being, even though that's not my first preference. Whew. Yeah, I can feel it now. Just feeling the touch of excess heat. I can see, there's El Campo 1. I'm just going to go up to El Campo 1 and then I'm going to turn back. I don't think I'm going to continue on too far today. In fact, I feel the urge right now to turn back. Can you see the structure up there? But I think I can do this. Yeah. Anxiety is suddenly welling up in me. Really, I feel that. You know, this happened last year at the same time, and I was really glad I turned back, but it was much further back than this. I'm probably being a little bit foolish. I'll be okay. I have lots and lots of water. Okay, so let's finish off this good life meditation, and then we'll reach El Campo, and then I'm going to head back. I probably won't go explore that canyon, but just make it back. I really feel the heat suddenly right back there, just suddenly turn on. Now, okay, this is where I'm going to exercise some of my maturity to try and calm myself down. Can you hear the anxiety in my speaking? The concern, a little bit of fear. Okay, maybe a lot of bit of fear. My maturity. I've been in this situation before, exactly this situation, in exactly this place. I know I'm a little further out than I was last time, but I also know I have a lot more water than I did before. And I know last time I was taking a route back I didn't know. I know exactly how to get back. So I'll just go up here to El Campo, number 1. I'm going to calm myself down. Let's see if I can get my speech and my breathing under control by the time I get there. And look at that, a desert tortoise shell. It's a big one. The desert tortoise, a native animal of the desert here. Death is another nature of things. Well, next principle, this is number 10, the Feast of Offal. The Feast of Offal is when we consume the waste and excess that you or I throw off at ourselves and one another when we're living an unprincipled, undisciplined life. It's a dangerous thing to do, because when you consume that feast, you become subject to its kind of like its infestation. Look at this! Wow, it's a lot of gross stuff. Okay, I've got 10 more to go. I'm going to do them fast. Number 11 is Temperance. Temperance is our controlled consumption of all things: food, drink, work, play, all things. And the sub-principles are suffering, simplicity, and apathy. Suffering because it's hard to deny ourselves what we want. Simplicity because a simple life is a way to instantiate temperance into our living. We become simple people, and there's less to temper if we're by nature consuming less. And apathy dovetails with the Feast of Offal, where we become apathetic to the things that we cannot control. It doesn't mean we don't care about them. It just means that we recognize what is outside of our control and what we can in fact influence, and don't get unduly upset by those facts. There's El Campo number 1. The rock cairns. More rock cairns there. Campo number 1. I wonder where number 2 is. An old chair, desk. (1978, 1979). Like an old cooker or something. Let's put this right here and finish this up. So, last few. Get out of here. Number 12, agency and the great indifference. Yeah, heat's coming on. I'm sweating now. Agency and the great indifference. Stay calm. You and I are agents. Everything that's alive is an agent. All this other stuff is inanimate stuff. It's not an agent, and by nature it's indifferent to us. It doesn't care. I don't believe there's any gods out there. I'm not saying that there aren't. I just don't believe it it's my operational position based on the fact of no evidence. As a result, I believe that the universe doesn't care about us. If you want to be cared for, then we have to look to one another. We are all we've got. Maybe our dogs and cats, they love us too. So let's be together. Let's be with one another. 13. The best seat in the house. Right here, right now, to not want to be anywhere else, be anyone else, or be doing anything else, but be okay with just what I am. Number 14. Risk of avoiding risk. When we seek to avoid the surface level risks that come early in life, not getting enough education or good enough quality, not finding a spouse to spend our life with, and not saving money, and all those types of surface level things that our parents warn us about. If we seek after just those things, we may be compromising our deeper nature, which is coming back to the principle of nature, which is what are we? Who are we? How do we want to spend our lives? If we sacrifice that for those surface level risks, we may wind up secure with someone and with lots of money in the bank later in life, but we may have missed something along the way and wonder what it was. So be careful in pursuing those things, that you don't give up the deeper level objectives of life, the deeper levels of your nature, and take time to develop that nature. So that's the risk of avoiding risk, is the danger of ending up later in life having missed out on what you wanted to be by virtue of the fact that you pursued what others wanted you to be. Now watch out for the opposite, because if you go for just the deeper one, just go after be what you want to be, then you may miss out on the surface level stuff and end up broke, alone, and without very good education, or whatever it is, So it's a very rare individual that can balance both. I certainly have, and I think I've spent most of my life going after the deeper level risks, and as a result, I'm not as secure as I would like to be at this age of my life. I'll have to probably work till I'm dead. That's okay. And I think it's better, if of the two, I'd rather go for the deeper one. But hopefully you guys will be able to figure out how to do, especially you younger folks, figure out how to do both. Next is complete sin and damnation. There are 5 types of sins in my worldview. All of them are basically revolve around the first one, which is falsity. Falsity, living a false life, being false to yourself, believing things that are untrue. And the 4 that are subordinate to that in a way are credulity, which is an overwillingness to believe, usually for the sake of getting us to somewhere that we want to be, or to be in with a group that we want to be in with. Faith, which is by definition believing things that have no evidence, or very little evidence, or no good evidence. 4 is superstition, and 5 is dogma. Superstition, of course, by its very nature, demands that we preemptively believe, and dogma is believing things by what do you call it? By fiat, or being dictated to us, right? I mean, that's not a good thing to do. We should process these things for ourselves. Next, moving along now, is the Path of Wildness. I think I got 2 things backwards there. Path of Wildness should have been before this one. Path of Wildness is the way to get unstuck in life. When we reach a point, like we reach 2 canyons, and which one do I go? I don't know. Think about it for a little bit. Allow yourself a little time to think it through. And then when that time comes, that it's time to make a decision, make the decision based on our best reconnoitered information and our best using our reason. But if we have to make a choice, we can't allow ourselves any more time, and we have to make a choice and we don't have enough facts, then allow yourself to be influenced by your gut. Take your gut feeling and just kind of go with it. I'm going right, even if that leads you off a waterfall, because sometimes in life it's just important to make a decision and go, even if we haven't thought it all through, and that may lead us to disaster, but sometimes that's the best route. It really, very often in life, it'll lead us to an adventure of some sort. If we haven't overshot, we'll survive it. So next is I think the next is the Great Life Adventure. The Great Life Adventure is that thing that we need to do typically early in life to create who we are, because we kind of born into the world tabula rasa in a way, kind of a blank slate, and we need to kind of fill ourselves up, get educated, experience things, have adventures, meet people, push the envelope. These kinds of things create our character and who we are. So give yourself some great life's adventures, especially when you're young. I recommend, and I tell my daughter, the whole darn decade of the 20s is yours to get educated, have adventures, have fun, do all that stuff. There's plenty of time. We live long enough. There's plenty of time after the 20s are over to settle down with a career and a family, and all that kind of stuff. Give yourself the whole 20. Believe me, you'll be a far more interesting person at cocktail parties. The next one is Great Life Adventure. The Season of Philosophy. That is a period that comes later in life, typically. Some people it comes early, but typically it comes later in life when you've had a chance to have your adventures, you've had a chance to develop your maturity and your wisdom and all that kind of stuff, and fulfill that stuff, and then you have a moment you want to share. And my point simply is that when that season of philosophy comes, if it comes, you'll know it, and you better jump at it while the opportunity is there, because it will pass. Either your muse will disappear, or your body will fail and you'll simply die, or worst of all, you'll wind up in a position where your faculties are gone. You have it in here, but you can't get it out. what a terrible position that would be. So when you feel the need to write something down, go ahead and write it down. Share it, share it if you want, even if you don't save it away, something like that. It's simple in this modern day and age. Just create a little blog somewhere, or a Twitter feed or something. It doesn't even have to be your main one. Something separate for your muse, so to speak, and get it out. And then finally, after the season of philosophy comes, that's it. Actually, the only thing after that is arena and utility. Just a reminder that all through life, every circumstance and situation is an arena for the execution of our principle, for the development of our principle and execution of our principles, and towards our objectives. Just like right now, this is an arena for me to temper my emotions. I'm feeling that welling of panic coming up, and I'm worried that this sun is going to kill me. I'm feeling a welling up. I'm going to temper that down, turn the camera off, put my shirt back on, put my hat back on, put my pack back on, and make a beeline out of this wilderness, because I am definitely September 21st, I think it is, September 22nd, and it's definitely a little too soon to be coming this far into the wilderness. The temperatures can still get me. This wind is a bit of it's tricking me, because it's this direct radiation that is the dangerous thing. So I'm out of here. So that's it. My good life adventure for today. Oh, no, my good life meditation for today. Thanks for joining me, everybody. How long? 36 minutes. Hey, I kept it under 40. All right. Have a great day. Take care. From El Campo 1. Let's just get one last view of El Campo 1. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.